There's an old saying my grandfather used to repeat, and even now, after so many years, it still echoes in my memory like a distant church bell. A father can raise 10 children, but 10 children can't take care of one father. For a long time, I thought it was just a phrase for effect, one of those things old folks make up to complain about life, until I heard the story of Mr. Thompson. This is a true story. The names have been changed, but the pain is real. And it happened right here in a big city like ours, hidden behind automatic gates and glass-walled condos. Mr. Thompson was 72 years old when this story began. 72 years of hard living, calloused hands, and a back bent from 45 years working at a steel mill in the industrial district. 45 years of waking up at 5 in the morning, taking 2 crowded buses, operating noisy machines that gradually stole his hearing. 45 years building a better life for his son, for Richard. Richard had been born in a rented room in a workers' housing complex where 10 families shared a single bathroom. Thompson remembered the first time he held the boy in his arms, so small, so fragile, and made a silent promise. My son won't live what I lived. My son will get an education. He's going to be somebody in life. And Thompson kept that promise. He worked double shifts, took odd jobs on Saturdays, sold his only watch, a wedding gift, to pay for Richard's private school, ate rice and eggs for months so the boy could have meat on his plate. And Richard studied, passed his SATs, got a degree in business administration, landed a job at a Fortune 500 company, got promoted, married Melissa, a doctor's daughter, a girl from a well-to-do family. They bought a 3-bedroom condo in a gated community with a pool and clubhouse. Richard had made it in life. And Mr. Thompson? Mr. Thompson was left alone. His wife, Margaret, had died 3 years earlier, cancer that advanced too quickly. Thompson had tried to keep working after that, but his body couldn't take it anymore. The back pain was constant. Arthritis in his hands made it impossible to hold tools. At 72, retired on Social Security that barely paid the rent, Mr. Thompson was alone in a ground-floor apartment that smelled of mold and medicine. That's when Richard called. "Hey, Dad. Look, Melissa and I have been talking. You can't keep living alone like this. You're getting old, right? We're worried. How about you come live with us? We've got a storage room at our place we can fix up." Thompson felt his heart warm. For the first time in 3 years since Margaret died, he didn't feel completely alone. His son was calling him home. The family would be reunited again. He didn't know he was walking straight into his own abandonment. Mr. Thompson sold what little furniture he had, packed his clothes in an old cardboard suitcase, and took a cab to the condo complex where Richard lived. The security guard looked suspiciously at this old man in worn pants and a faded shirt. "I'm the father of 704, Thompson explained, a bit awkwardly. The apartment was everything Thompson had imagined it would be. Gleaming tile floors, modern furniture, a huge TV on the wall. Richard greeted him with a quick, mechanical hug. "Welcome, Dad. Let me show you your room." The storage room was actually an enlarged laundry area. It had a twin bed against the wall, an old dresser that must have been left over from some renovation, and the washing machine humming in a corner. The window looked out onto the building's ventilation shaft. You could see a brick wall and nothing more. But Thompson didn't complain. He was close to his son, his grandson, the family. In the first few days, he tried to make himself useful. Woke up early, made coffee, washed the dishes, but Melissa soon made it clear she didn't like having him there. "Richard, he leaves everything out of place, had coffee and left his cup in the sink, didn't even wash it, and he walks around the house in those old slippers making noise. Melissa, he's my father. Your father? And who pays the bills here? Who buys the food? He doesn't contribute a single dollar." Thompson heard it all from his little room. Huddled on the narrow bed, staring at the water-stained ceiling, he felt each word like a slap in the face. He tried to make even less noise, walked in his socks, ate little at meals, spent his days locked in the room listening to the family's chatter on the other side of the thin wall. Tommy, his 8-year-old grandson, was Thompson's only joy. The boy liked to stay with his grandfather, hearing stories from the time when there were no cell phones or internet. But Melissa soon put a stop to it. "Tommy, stop bothering your grandfather. He's old. He needs quiet. Go play in your room." Months passed. Thompson lived like a ghost within his own family, ate after everyone else, bathed last, slept listening to arguments in the living room. "I can't take it anymore, Richard. He coughs all night long, leaves the bathroom dirty, and that old person smell, don't you notice it? Melissa, for God's sake. It's him or me, Richard. Choose. Either your father leaves this house or I do." Thompson was sitting on the edge of the bed when he heard the bedroom door open. Richard came in, didn't look his father in the eye, stood in the doorway fidgeting with his phone as if he needed courage to speak. "Dad, we need to talk." Thompson already knew what was coming. He felt a tightness in his chest, that same pain he felt when Margaret died. But this time it was different. When Margaret died, he was surrounded by love, good memories, a shared life. Now he was being discarded like old furniture. "Look, Dad, it's not working out with you living here. Melissa's not adjusting, you know? And the condo is small. 3 people is already tight. 4 then. You understand, right? We found a boarding house near downtown, well located, close to a grocery store, pharmacy. I'll pay for the first 3 months, then you use your Social Security. It'll be better for you. You'll have more freedom, won't have to walk on eggshells." Thompson said nothing, just nodded his head. What was he going to say? That he'd sold everything to come live here? That he'd given up his own dignity to be close to his son? Richard continued, now pulling something out of a bag he had brought. "Here, Dad, I bought you a new blanket. It's going to be cold in the boarding house. It's a pretty basic room, you know. This blanket is good, warm." It was a cheap blanket, the kind they sell at department stores, gray with blue dots, synthetic, but it was new. Thompson took the blanket, looked at his son for the first time since the conversation began. Richard avoided his gaze. "Okay, son, I understand. Sorry for the trouble." Richard left the room quickly, almost running, left his father there, alone, holding that cheap blanket as if it were the only thing left of his own life. Thompson began to gather his few belongings. He didn't have much: some clothes, a photo of Margaret, a rosary she had left behind. That's when the door opened again. His wife, Margaret, had died 3 years earlier, cancer that advanced too quickly. Thompson had tried to keep working after that, but his body couldn't take it anymore. The back pain was constant. Arthritis in his hands made it impossible to hold tools. At 72, retired on Social Security that barely paid the rent, Mr. Thompson was alone in a ground-floor apartment that smelled of mold and medicine. That's when Richard called. "Hey, Dad, look, Melissa and I have been talking. You can't keep living alone like this. You're getting old, right? We're worried. How about you come live with us? We've got a storage room at our place we can fix up." Thompson felt his heart warm. For the first time in 3 years since Margaret died, he didn't feel completely alone. His son was calling him home. The family would be reunited again. He didn't know he was walking straight into his own abandonment. Mr. Thompson sold what little furniture he had, packed his clothes in an old cardboard suitcase, and took a cab to the condo complex where Richard lived. The security guard looked suspiciously at this old man in worn pants and a faded shirt. "I'm the father of 704, Thompson explained, a bit awkwardly.
The apartment was everything Thompson had imagined it would be like. Gleaming tile floors, modern furniture, a huge TV on the wall. Richard greeted him with a quick, mechanical hug. "Welcome, Dad. Let me show you your room." The storage room was actually an enlarged laundry area. It had a twin bed against the wall, an old dresser that must have been left over from some renovation, and the washing machine humming in a corner. The window looked out on the building's ventilation shaft. You could see a brick wall and nothing more. But Thompson didn't complain. He was close to his son, his grandson, the family.
Tommy came running in. The 8-year-old boy had wide, frightened eyes. "Grandpa! Grandpa, don't go! Please don't go!" Thompson knelt down, hugged the boy, felt the small body shaking with sobs. "It's okay, Tommy. Grandpa's going to a nice place. You can visit." "No! Dad is sending you away. I heard everything. He's sending you away because Melissa doesn't want you here. It's not fair, Grandpa. It's not fair." Thompson didn't know what to say, hugged the boy tighter, stroked his hair. It was then that Tommy saw the blanket, the cheap gray blanket with blue dots that Richard had given his father. The boy stopped crying, stared at the blanket as if seeing something terrible. "Is that the blanket Dad gave you?" "Yes, son. It's new. It's warm." What happened next, no one who was there will ever forget. Tommy grabbed the blanket from his grandfather's hands, looked at it for a long moment, then, with a strength that seemed to come from somewhere beyond an 8-year-old boy, he began to tear it. Once, twice, 3 times. The blanket tore in half. Thompson was paralyzed, watched the grandson tearing the blanket his son had given him. "Tommy, what are you doing, son? Stop!" But Tommy didn't stop. He tore until the blanket was completely split in 2. Then, breathing hard, crying, he held out half to his grandfather. "Keep this half, Grandpa." But why? Why did you tear it?" Tommy looked directly at his grandfather with a wisdom that shouldn't exist in a child. "Because when Dad gets old, when Dad can't work anymore and needs me to take care of him, I'm going to give him the other half." That was the moment when time stopped in that small laundry room. Thompson stared at the boy, at the half blanket in his wrinkled hands, at the other half the boy held, and he understood. He understood that this 8-year-old child had just given the cruelest and most perfect lesson about life anyone could receive. The commotion had drawn Richard's attention. He appeared at the door, saw the torn blanket, saw the son crying, saw the father pale as a ghost. "What's going on here? Tommy, what did you do?" Tommy turned to his father. The tears were streaming down the boy's face, but his eyes had a clarity that froze Richard on the spot. "I tore Grandpa's blanket in half, Dad." "But why? That was a new blanket." "Because when you get old, when you can't work anymore, and I have to take care of you, I'm going to give you the other half." Richard felt his legs give out. He leaned against the doorframe. His face went white, then red, then white again. The words echoed in his mind like thunder. "When you get old, I'm going to give you the other half." In that moment, Richard saw his entire life pass before his eyes. He saw his father waking up at 5 in the morning, saw the calloused hands, saw the worn-out shirts, saw the rice and eggs his father ate, while he, Richard, had meat on his plate. He saw the watch his father sold to pay for his school, saw the double shifts, saw the bent back from 45 years of hard labor. He saw the small room where he was born, saw his father carrying him on his shoulders, saw the pride in the old man's eyes the day Richard graduated from college. And he saw what he had done.
He had put this man who had given everything, in a laundry room. He had let his wife humiliate him. He had sent him away like old furniture. And he, Richard was sending this man away with a cheap blanket from a department store. "Dad, Dad, forgive me." Richard fell to his knees on the floor, hugged his father's legs, cried like he hadn't cried since he was a child. "Forgive me, Dad, forgive me. I'm a monster. I'm an ungrateful son. You gave me everything, everything. And I... Thompson placed his trembling hand on his son's head, stroked his hair like he used to when Richard was little and had nightmares. "Son, my son." Tommy hugged them both, grandfather, father, and grandson. 3 generations united by pain, but now, perhaps, by redemption. Mr. Thompson didn't leave that day. Richard set him up in the guest room, a real room, with a real window, with a real bed. Melissa was furious, threatened to leave. She did. She came back 3 days later without saying anything, just put her suitcase in the room and never mentioned it again. Thompson lived another 7 years. He died in his sleep on a June night with Tommy lying beside him, reading comic books aloud. Richard was never the same. He changed, became kinder, more present, more human. The torn blanket still exists. Richard kept both halves in a box in the closet, never threw them away. And sometimes, late at night, when Tommy is already asleep, Richard takes out those 2 halves and just looks at them, remembering the lesson an 8-year-old boy taught. Remembering that life is a wheel, and that everything, absolutely everything you do to others, one day comes back to you. May this torn blanket teach us to never forget where we came from, to never forget who raised us, to never forget that one day, we too will be old, and we'll need someone to cover us, not with a cheap blanket from a department store, but with love, with gratitude, with memory. You know, this story makes me think about how many Richards are out there. How many children who made it in life forgot who paid the price for that success. How many fathers are sleeping in storage rooms while their children watch flat-screen TVs in the living room. How many Mr. Thompsons are dying slowly, not from illness, but from abandonment, from loneliness, from ingratitude. And you know what's saddest? Most of these children aren't monsters. They're not bad people. They're just busy people. People who forgot. People who think money can pay for what love built. A cheap blanket from a department store doesn't replace 45 years of hard work, doesn't replace the double shifts, doesn't replace the rice and eggs the father ate so the son could have meat. It doesn't replace love. But the hardest truth of this story isn't what Richard did to his father. It's what Tommy, at just 8 years old, had already understood about life. That everything comes back, that the wheel turns, that those who plant ingratitude harvest loneliness. That boy tore the blanket not out of malice, but out of justice, out of an ancient wisdom that sometimes only children can see.
If you're listening to this story now, and you have a father or mother still living, stop everything you're doing and think. When was the last time you really hugged them? When was the last time you said thank you for everything they did? When was the last time you treated them with the dignity they deserve? Don't wait until it's too late. Don't wait until an 8-year-old grandson has to teach you a lesson you should already know. Because one day you'll be old too. One day you'll need someone too. And on that day, you'll discover what kind of seeds you planted. Honor your parents while they're still here, not with cheap blankets, but with presence, with love, with memory, before all that's left is half a torn blanket and a mountain of regret. If this story touched your heart, if it made you reflect, if it made you remember someone you need to hug today, share it with someone who needs to hear this message. Here on the Stories That Stay channel, I bring stories that aren't just to listen to, they're stories to feel, to reflect on, to transform. stories that stay in the soul. If you're not subscribed yet, subscribe to the channel. Turn on notifications so you don't miss any story. And tell me in the comments, did this story touch you? Do you know any Mr. Thompson or any Richard? Let's build together a community that values what really matters: family, gratitude, love. See you in the next story. And remember, those who love care. Those who care honor. Those who honor never forget. A big hug, and go hug your parents.